Have you ever tried to meditate for a few minutes, felt calmer, and then lost that calm the instant you opened your phone or stepped back into noise? Have you ever wondered why your mind can understand wisdom, but still gets pulled like a magnet toward craving irritation and distraction all day long? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are exploring a path that sounds strict at first, but becomes one of the kindest forms of self-care when you understand it deeply. Sense restraint is a direct doorway to equanimity. This is not about becoming rigid or joyless. This is not about forcing yourself to be pure. This is about learning how the mind gets hooked, how the senses pull attention into endless wanting and resisting, and how you can train the mind to stay free right in the middle of modern life. Let me start with a story, because sense restraint becomes real only when it meets a real person with a real day. Imagine someone named Devin. Devin sincerely wants peace. Devin likes the idea of being steady, patient, and kind. Devin even enjoys meditation sometimes. But Devin has a pattern. A good meditation session happens in the morning. Then the day begins and the mind gets torn into pieces. Notification, opinions, comparison, advertisements, arguments, music, background noise. Devin feels pulled and pushed all day. Then Devin sits at night and wonders why meditation feels harder, why the mind is restless, why the heart is edgy. Devin thinks the problem is weak willpower. Devin thinks the problem is not being spiritual enough. But the real problem is simpler and more human. Devin is feeding the mind constant stimulation and then asking it to be still. Devin is training the mind all day to chase, and then expecting it to stop chasing on command. This is where the teaching of sense restraint enters like a quiet rescue. Sense restraint is not about hating the senses. The senses are not enemies. The senses are simply doors. Sounds enter, images enter, smells enter, tastes enter, touch enters, thoughts enter, and each contact triggers a feeling tone inside the mind. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Then, the reflex appears. Pleasant makes the mind reach for more. Unpleasant makes the mind push away. Neutral makes the mind drift into numbness. If you do not train this process, the mind becomes like a dog on a leash being dragged by every smell. It is exhausting, not because the dog is bad, but because the dog isn't reined. Equanimity is the leash becoming loose. Equanimity is the mind being able to walk beside life instead of being yanked by life. Sense restraint is one of the most direct ways to build that equanimity, because it reduces the number of hooks entering the doors and it also changes how you relate to the hooks that still enter. Devin hears a teacher say something that changes everything. Restraint is not deprivation. Restraint is protection. You are protecting the mind the way you protect a wound while it heals. Not because the world is evil, but because constant friction prevents recovery. Devin decides to experiment for 2 weeks. The first experiment is small and honest. Devin chooses one sense door to protect in a gentle way. The phone. Devin notices that the moment the phone is picked up, the mind changes. Attention fragments. Desire appears. Comparison appears. Outrage appears. Then the mind wants more. Not because Devin is weak, but because the system is designed to capture attention. So Devin creates a boundary. No phone for the first 30 minutes after waking up. That is it. Not a dramatic vow. Not a perfect lifestyle. Just 30 minutes of protected mind. The first morning feels uncomfortable. Devin feels a restless itch in the hands. The mind says check just in case. The mind says you might miss something. The mind says you will be behind. Devin sees something important. The discomfort is not caused by not checking. The discomfort is caused by craving. The craving is a wave. It rises, peaks, and passes if you do not feed it. Devin sits for a short meditation instead. 5 minutes. Just breath. The mind still wanders, but it is less chaotic than usual. Devin finishes and feels slightly more centered than on a normal morning. Devin repeats the experiment for several days. The urge is still there, but it gets weaker. Devin begins to feel a new kind of freedom. Not the freedom of doing anything instantly, but the freedom of not being forced. This is where equanimity begins to become practical. Equanimity is often described as not being pushed and pulled by pleasant and unpleasant experiences. But how can you develop that if you allow yourself to be pushed and pulled by hundreds of micro experiences every hour? Sense restraint reduces the push and pull, making the training possible. Now, there is another layer. Sense restraint is not only limiting input, it is also how you look at input. Evan notices that even when the phone is used, the mind does not have to be swallowed. Devin begins practicing a simple inner restraint. Before clicking something, Devin pauses for one breath and asks a question. If I consume this, what state of mind will it produce? This is not moral judgment. It is cause and effect. If you watch outrage content, you get outrage mind. If you watch comparison content, you get envy mind. If you watch fear content late at night, you get anxious sleep. If you feed the mind endless novelty, you get restlessness. Devin starts seeing that many emotional problems are not mysteries. They are predictable results of inputs. This is empowering because it means you can change outputs by changing inputs. Devin makes a second experiment. Before sleep, Devin reduces stimulation. No heated arguments, no intense videos, no doom scrolling. Devin chooses a simpler last hour, a shower, a quiet stretch, a few pages of gentle reading, a short sit. The first nights feel boring. The mind complains, but then something shifts. Devin falls asleep faster. Dreams are less chaotic. The next day the mind feels steadier. This steadiness is equanimity growing. The mind is less reactive because it is less inflamed. Now, some people hear restraint in fear that life will become dull. But Devin discovers the opposite. Compulsion makes life dull. Compulsion turns pleasure into hunger. Hunger never feels satisfied. When you practice restraint, pleasure becomes cleaner. A simple meal tastes better. A conversation feels richer. A walk feels alive. The nervous system stops being overstimulated and starts appreciating subtlety again. This is an important point. Restraint does not remove joy. It removes addiction. It removes the kind of craving that destroys joy. Devin begins to notice how craving actually works inside the body. When Devin sees something desirable, the body leans forward. The mind narrows. The breath changes. The attention becomes tight. In the past, Devin would follow the urge automatically. Click. Consume. Then feel empty. Now Devin practices a different move. Devin stays with the urge, a sensation for 10 seconds. Tightness. Pulling. Heat. Restlessness. Devin notices that the urge is not a command. It is a wave. This realization changes everything. When you see that urges are waves, you stop being afraid of them. You stop thinking you must obey them. You become free to choose. Choice is the heart of equanimity. Equanimity is not a dead calm. It is the freedom to choose your response rather than being possessed by the reflex. Now let us talk about the deeper meaning of sense restraint as it connects to the path of awakening. In many teachings, the mind is compared to a pond. If you keep throwing stones into the pond, the water never becomes clear. The stones are sense contacts that trigger craving and aversion. When you practice restraint, you are not trying to make the pond special. You are simply stopping the unnecessary stones. Then clarity appears naturally. Clarity is wisdom. Wisdom is seeing reality without distortion. Distortion is created by craving and aversion. So restraint supports wisdom by reducing distortion. Devin experiences this in meditation. The mind becomes less busy. Thoughts still arise, but they are less sticky. Emotions still arise, but they pass more easily. Devin can see the chain of mind more clearly. Contact, feeling, tone, wanting, resisting, story. Once Devin sees the chain, Devin can break it. This is why restraint is not merely behavior. It is insight tree. Now, the teacher also emphasizes something crucial. Restraint must be balanced. To tight creates tension and rebellion. To loose creates chaos and regret. Equanimity lies in the middle. Gentle discipline, kind firmness, realistic boundaries. Devin learns this by making mistakes. One weekend Devin tries to be too strict. Devin cuts off everything suddenly. No entertainment, no social time, no small comforts. The mind becomes irritable. The body becomes tense. Devin snaps at someone. Devin realizes that strictness without kindness is not restraint. It is aggression turned inward. So Devin adjusts. Devin returns to a balanced approach. Choose fewer inputs that harm the mind. Keep wholesome pleasures. Keep friendships. Keep laughter. Keep music that soothes rather than inflames. Keep beauty that calms rather than agitates. This balanced approach works. Now let us bring this into relationships, because sense restraint also applies to speech and conflict. A major source of mental agitation is not only what you consume, but what you say. Harsh speech creates agitation in the speaker. Gossip creates restlessness. Lying creates fear of exposure. Argument addiction creates constant inner fire. Devin begins practicing restraint in speech, not silence. Restraint. Devin stops replying immediately when triggered. Devin stops sending messages while angry. Devin waits, breath, then chooses words that are honest and respectful. This changes Devin life. Conflicts become smaller. Regrets become fewer. The heart becomes less heavy. This is equanimity supported by ethical restraint. Ethics is not a separate topic here. Ethical action calms the mind. A calm mind supports equanimity. Equanimity supports wisdom. Wisdom supports compassion. This is a single path. Devin starts noticing the karmic aspect too. Karma means action leads to results. Not only external results, internal results. If you feed the mind agitation, you get agitation. If you feed the mind calm, you get calm. If you practice restraint, you get freedom. This is karma you can observe directly. So Devin reframes the whole project. I am not trying to become perfect. I am trying to reduce suffering by changing causes. This is the most mature approach. It avoids shame. It avoids pride. It stays grounded in cause and effect. Now, let us address a concern. Some people worry that restraint is avoidance, that you are just hiding from life. But true restraint is not hiding. It is training. You are not avoiding difficulty. You are reducing unnecessary difficulty so you can face necessary difficulty with strength. Evan still faces real challenges. Deadlines, family tension, uncertainty. But Devin meets them with a steadier mind. The difference is huge. When the mind is not constantly inflamed by trivial stimulation, it has more capacity for real life. This is the hidden gift of restraint. It gives you capacity. Capacity is what allows compassion to be real. Without capacity, you care and then you burn out. With capacity, you care and you stay steady. That is equanimity supporting compassion. Devin begins volunteering occasionally. Devin listens to people who are struggling. In the past, Devin would have absorbed their pain and then felt overwhelmed. Now Devin listens with presence and steadiness. Devin cares but does not drown. Devin helps where possible and releases what is not possible. This is mature compassion. Now let me share a turning point moment that shows how restraint becomes freedom. Devin is in a situation that used to create a spiral. A social event where people are bragging and comparing. In the past, Devin would feel inferior, then would overtalk to impress, then would feel ashamed afterward, or Devin would withdraw and feel lonely. Either way, suffering. This time Devin practices sense restraint internally. Devin restrains comparison. Not by pretending comparison thoughts will never arise, but by not feeding them. When a comparison thought appears, Devin notes it and returns attention to the breath and to listening. Devin focuses on genuine connection rather than performance. Devin asks real questions. Devin smiles naturally. Devin leaves feeling lighter. This is a major victory. Not because the event became perfect, but because the mind stopped creating unnecessary suffering. And that is what equanimity is. The end of unnecessary suffering. Now, if you want a simple way to practice sense restraint without turning it into a harsh rulebook, try this approach. Choose one protected zone each day. A small time window where you reduce stimulation and let the mind rest. Evening, or both, choose one mindful gate each day. One place where you pause before consuming, before clicking, before replying, before speaking. Choose one wholesome nourishment each day. A walk, a quiet sit, a gentle conversation, a creative activity. Something that feeds peace rather than craving. These 3 choices compound. You will not become a different person overnight, but you will become the freer person. And freedom is the deepest form of happiness. Now I want to close with a reflection you can carry into your next hour. The world will always offer more than the mind can process. If you try to consume everything, you will live in agitation. Sense restraint is the decision to protect what is precious. Your attention, your peace, your ability to love, your ability to see clearly. When you protect attention, equanimity becomes possible. When equanimity becomes stable, wisdom becomes easier. When wisdom becomes clearer, compassion becomes more natural. This is the path in everyday life. Thank you for being here with me today. If you have noticed that certain inputs make your mind agitated, share what you discovered. And if you have a form of gentle restraint that helps you feel freer, share that too. Your experience can help someone else take the first step. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and stay with us for more teachings that turn daily habits into awakening practice. Until next time, protect the mind with kindness, train the pause, and let equanimity grow quietly until it becomes your new normal.